doubting feelings, the thought would come into my mind, do not doubt. So we got to Nauvoo, everything looked great. I would wake up in the middle of the night, unable to sleep, checking the weather over and over, because I knew that that would be a factor whether we got to pull this off. And our plan was to arrive and have an opening type of ceremony and then have a big dance the first night, which we did. We had a big dance at the Sarah Granger Kimball barn, and that was great. We could see the temple off in the distance just glowing as the kids danced, the youth danced, and then the next day the plan was for us to do the trek.
So we all survived this very bad storm and experienced a whole lot of miracles where God protected us. It turned out to be this beautiful experience where someone should have died.
Wow.
Seriously injured. It should have been really bad.
Are you kidding me?
A course of many miracles, everybody was okay. Nobody was seriously harmed at all.
Wow. Orale vato loco. I was messing with Ryan because I said my neck is too long, I have an ET neck, Ryan. And then for all my shirts, I need a button in between the top button and here, because look at that. It's like that, and I don't like that. So then I do this, and then I look like a orale vato loco, which I love my loco neighbors who are not vatos. They're hardworking people like me. All right.
Yeah.
Ryan Nelson has a thicker, shorter neck, and he look like a man.
Except for I'm not Ryan Nelson.
I mean, Ryan Sorensen. Sorry. Ryan Sorensen. Did you know I told you I have
I'll take it.
I told you I have Sorensens in my steak here that I grew up with. They're dentists. I'm drinking Cardio Miracle, and they asked me to, they're sponsoring me now. Nice. And I'm new to it, but I'm going to tell you, man, I've been using this for about a week, and I feel great, and that is no joke.
If I could have, I would have started taking this when I was 20.
It's like a secret weapon to your health.
Cardio Miracle has been a game changer in my life. I feel good all over when I take it.
Cardio Miracle has created a pathway for me to be healthy.
This is something that's actually made a huge difference.
Cardio Miracle is one of the best things that ever happened to me.
For me as a doctor, I have seen Cardio Miracle improve the lives of many of my patients with many different types of chronic conditions.
Cardio Miracle has extended my husband's life.
Cardio Miracle has saved our life. Literally.
I don't know anything more powerful than to say, I have my own family doing this.
If you're not doing it, Jay, you need to get on it, and I'll give you 15. Everybody that signs up with me now, there's the QR code right there. You just put your phone up to it, and you get it, the link, and then go Yep. Or the link is in my description field, and you go to buyproduct.cardiomiraclehealth.com. That's buyproduct.cardiomiraclehealth.com. And I'm still learning about it. But it is basically, it is exactly what it says, and it's delicious. Even though it's delicious, I mix it with grape flavored drink. You can mix it with juice, anything you want, or you can drink it plain. And you just drink 2 servings a day. Most people do, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. And it's the ultimate solution for cardiovascular health and overall well-being. They didn't do this for me, though. And I think you and I were talking about it. And I said, is Sorensen a pioneer name? And you went, yeah, it's a pioneer name.
Definitely right? Is. Yes.
Okay. Welcome aboard, Pilgrim. Ryan Sorensen, you're an accomplished documentary filmmaker. And I think you're the driving force behind Verum Films. Well, you and your brother kind of do it together. But you are known for your commitment to uncovering truth, Ryan Sorensen. And you've made a name for yourself with your brother in the world of investigative documentaries. Your work with Verum spans a diverse range of topics, from political exposés, right? To in-depth explorations of religious subjects. Verum's approach to filmmaking is characterized by thorough research, balanced perspectives, and a keen eye for compelling narratives. His documentaries with his brother, what's your brother's name?
Steve,
that's right. Steve was at the Firm conference as well.
Yes.
So your films are recognized for their ability to, tackle complex and often controversial issues with clarity and depth through verum, which takes its name from the Latin word for truth. Am I correct? Yeah.
That is absolutely right.
And the Sorensen brothers continue to produce thought-provoking content that challenges viewers to look beyond surface-level understanding of important societal topics with a growing portfolio of impactful documentaries. And before I forget, brothers and sisters, if you are enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ding the bell for notifications. Your support means the world to me and helps the channel grow. And hey, if you want to contribute to the program, I do prefer Venmo first, then Cash App, then PayPal, then Zelle. And I've got cool products. I got cool merch. That's all being designed. I get a percentage of it. And that's if you're interested. Remember, your comments are what keep this community thriving. So drop your thoughts below. And if you're feeling extra generous, consider becoming a YouTube member or sending a super thanks right there. The button's right below the screen during our videos. Now back to the topic. And I wanted to keep growing. Ryan, I'm excited to have you here because I know as we talked at the Firm conference, I know that you guys are on the verge of something huge, and you've established yourselves as a respected voice. I saw you making your rounds with all the tables and at the venue, and talking about your documentaries. I'd walk by and I'd hear you in some very engaging conversations. You are the filmmaker. You said that you're used to being behind the camera.
Yes.
Consistently delivering and engaging. And then your brother kind of is also the inspired one for the critical thinking area. Welcome to the program. Let me start by asking you this, and then I want you to tell us what you are going to be speaking about today, or what we're going to be talking about. But are you the one that's more into the aesthetics of things? Are you the techie guy, the camera guy more than your brother, or do you guys do it together?
We do it together. He does a lot more of the editing, and he actually has a separate company than I do, so we can work together on projects we agree on. And then if we don't agree on a certain project, we can each do our own thing. We got to keep that sibling love going on.
Right.
Between us.
I've got a brother. I've got a brother. I'm 53. He's 7 years younger than me. So
okay, almost. I am the older brother, though. Just to clarify.
Right.
So So it depends on the project. I prefer being behind the camera. Looking at different camera angles. I enjoy being out in the field. I've done a lot of camera work for the Heartland Research Group, which is how we got invited to the Firm Book of Mormon conference. So I love being out in the field, chasing truth. And my brother, he's the editing rock star. He's the one that really makes the final projects look fantastic.
That's awesome, Ryan. So what are we talking about today?
All right. So we are going to talk this evening, or whatever time we're going to air this, about a film that we did called Doubt Not, Fear Not.
Okay.
And to give you a little bit of background, it's a film about an experience my wife and I had with our stake youth conference last summer. So we all survived this very bad storm and experienced a whole lot of miracles where God protected us. It turned out to be this beautiful experience where someone should have died.
Wow.
Seriously injured. It should have been really bad.
Are you kidding me?
A course of many miracles, everybody was okay. Nobody was seriously harmed at all.
Wow. So you and your wife, Ma and Pa's, on a trek, the treks that the youth have every year, the Pioneer Treks.
We're up in Nauvoo doing this trek with our youth. And we expected it was only a 1-day trek out of a 3-day youth conference. So no big deal. We were watching the weather, thought everything was going to be great. But then this big storm, which turned out to be a derecho, started rolling across the plains, Nebraska, Iowa, and then ran right into us in Illinois.
So derecho is Spanish for windstorm, which means rapidly moving showers or thunderstorms, and means straight, which describes the straight line winds that typically accompany this phenomenon. That's crazy. So what are we talking about here? Let's go straight. So we've got this trek. So we had this trek and you're in this storm. So we're talking miracles. So what happened next?
So as the storm was coming upon us, our leaders were trying to figure out what to do because we had 200 kids, plus a bunch of leaders,
right?
Trying to figure out a place we could go because Nauvoo is very flat, right? Just open fields.
Kindly light amid the encircling gloom, lead thou me on. I love to choose.
About 4 years ago, we began planning a trek for our youth in 2019. However, about 2 days before, we had to cancel the whole event due to tornadic weather. And then the next year we decided to do it again, but then COVID canceled that. We did a lot of praying for good weather. We didn't want this to get canceled again because of poor weather. And so there were a lot of prayers and even some fasting that went into planning and preparing for this event for our youth. 3 things I'd been praying for: that the youth would have faith building experiences that would help them change or make changes in their life, that we would have good weather, and that we would be safe.
We went into this with a youth theme that we'd been discussing for half the year at that point, at least 6 months. And that youth theme was Philippians 4:13. It says, I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. And as we planned this event, we wanted to create something that pushed our youth, that asked them to step outside of their comfort zones and to find exactly how Christ pushes them in his own ways.
About a week before the youth conference, maybe a week and a half, as I was praying for those 3 things, the thought came into my mind: you need to pray for a miracle. I thought, that's kind of a strange thought. And I closed my prayer. The next night, the thought came again: you need to pray for a miracle. And so I just said, Heavenly Father, can we have a miracle? I didn't know exactly what that meant. I didn't know what it looked like. I just felt it. And so each night as I prayed, the thought would come again: the youth will see miracles. And at first it felt like one big miracle, or one miracle that they would experience. And then as each night I prayed, it felt like they're going to see miracles. Something's going to happen. And I've never prayed for something like that. I've never been that bold. I almost felt uncomfortable praying for a miracle. As I prayed and would have those feelings, those kind of doubting feelings, the thought would come into my mind, do not doubt. So we got to Nauvoo, everything looked great. I would wake up in the middle of the night, unable to sleep, checking the weather over and over, because I knew that that would be a factor whether we got to pull this off. And our plan was to arrive and have an opening type of ceremony and then have a big dance the first night, which we did. We had a big dance at the Sarah Granger Kimball barn, and that was great. We could see the temple off in the distance just glowing as the kids danced, the youth danced. And then the next day, the plan was for us to do the trek. We did have a path, and we had a member of the church there that was willing to let us trek on some of her land as well as eat our lunch there. That was the meeting point, the halfway point for us was to get to that, to get to her farm.
We were all really excited. We had a big breakfast that morning, and everybody was excited to go. All the families congregated. They all had colorful bandanas to kind of represent what family they were in. And we were able to meet together at the trailer first thing that morning around 8 o'clock or so to have a quick devotional and hear a bit of bugling for the morning and get things started off right with a big prayer.
One thing that really stood out to me when the young woman that said the prayer for our trek that day, there was a lot in it where she said, please keep us safe. I don't know how many times she said it, but maybe 2 or 3 times. And after she ended the prayer, I thought, okay, that was very interesting.
Of course, you can never get that many people together in a quick order, and so things kept dragging along, and we ended up leaving a little bit later than we expected, probably about 30 minutes. And so some of us were a little bit antsy as youth leaders to try to get things going. So as we hit the trail, we began our march, and it was beautiful weather. It was neat. The youth were really happy. Some were singing songs and hiking. There were wheat fields on our sides and cornfields, and it was really a beautiful experience to share with the youth. As we continued to travel, we did stop at the Edward Partridge cemetery site, where you can stop and see where the first bishop of the restored church was. And so as we were spending some time there, that also took a little bit of time off of our travel time. We were there for quite a while.
That morning, I had a closing in Nauvoo at the bank. And when I left there, I knew that the kids were probably well on their way to here. And it was so exciting. I just, there they were, and it was a beautiful day. And I drove past, rolled my window down, and said, "Hi, you're coming to my house. I'm so excited." And then they just kept on coming. And in the distance, I could see the dark clouds coming from across the river. So I said, "You guys better hurry up, because it looks like you're going to get rained on."
As we continued on that morning, one of the congregational sisters, Sagan, she had come up to me and said, "Hey, we've got some storms coming in, and they're tracking them across Iowa and northern Missouri. We'll have to keep an eye on them because some of them look like they could be severe." And so we started to kind of plan out what timing things would need to be, and we felt like we were doing all right.
All of a sudden, we began to get some alerts on phones that there was bad weather coming our way.
Around 9 o'clock, 9:15, we had another alert that came through, and Sagan came and found me again, and she said, "Justin, you may want to look at this. There's this storm that's halfway across Iowa, and it's pretty good. And I said, well, that's quite a ways away. And she said, well, that's fine, except for it's going 90 miles an hour. As we were continuing to plan, we realized we might need to pick this up just a little bit to ensure that the youth and leaders could get to somewhere that was covered and safe in time for a storm of that speed to be on us.
As we were walking along, we saw this big white barn. And one of my counselors said, let's go ask these people if we can go inside their barn. And it was very large. So she ran up to the door, and the lady said, sure. She was a bit surprised. Amber said, we have 200 plus youth and leaders pushing hand carts. Can we shelter in your barn? And she was very gracious, and she came out, and they were motioning for us to come. And we looked at President Johnson, and she said we could go in her barn. And he looked over at it for half a second, and then he just pointed at it and said, I'm not going in there. I'd rather lay in a ditch. We said, okay. And we told her thank you anyway, and on we went. And that was a bit nerve-wracking just because we could tell we didn't have a lot of time left.
We realized that at this point we needed to get moving. This storm was coming on us. It was moving even faster than they had originally thought. I'm moving back and forth amongst the different companies, asking for these families just to keep moving. If somebody's struggling, put them in your wagon and let's keep going.
We turned right towards the Pence farm, which is where we were about a mile away from the Pence farm, and that's where we were trying to get to. If we could get to their farm in time, we could probably shelter in their home, in their barn, just somewhere safe.
As we were moving westward into the storm that was coming from that way, it was pretty obvious we were going to get caught in the middle of an open area. As we looked up in the horizon, we could see some trees, and we could see a little bit of a house, the side of a house, and I just thought we have to get there. And I decided to run up a little further to get with that lead group to make sure they didn't get past these trees. Well, that first 2 or 3 families had already gotten past this house. They were already moving further away.
Both of us jumped in our vehicles. He had his truck with the trailer attached, and I have a little minivan.
I just took off, and I said, you guys load up the trailer, fill up the trailer.
What I didn't realize at the time was there was a trailer, a truck and trailer that had come from the house we were going to be having our lunch at, that had come to pick them up. The storm was coming, the wind was picking up, it started to rain a little bit, and we just knew we had to be near some shelter. And so I ran down the driveway and began to pound on the door, and it was about 50 feet, maybe 75 feet from the road. And I pounded on the door, and there was no answer. And I turned around, and there is a garage that's open. It fits probably 2 cars. And I just knew that we had to get our youth in there. And so I began to holler back out to the road for the youth to come running down this way.
My family's mom and pa told us to push our handcart that we had been pulling into this ditch. And after we did that, we were looking around and just following everybody that was running.
So right before the storm hit, I got my family together and we said a quick prayer.
I could see objects just flying at me.
The walls of the barn were shaking.
People were scared. People were crying.
My truck was shaking and lifting.
Things are flying all over the place.
Power lines sparking above me.
Some people started yelling, like, everybody get down and cover your head. I was genuinely concerned that the whole barn was going to collapse.
I just thought, Tammy, what have you done? If anybody is hurt, I felt very responsible because I took the lead. I picked the date and the day that we would trek. At that point, I had gotten a text from someone, I can't remember who, saying that they thought everybody was accounted for and that everyone was okay. And I couldn't believe it. I was so shocked because it was such a violent storm. And into my mind came, this was your miracle.
There were many thoughts and prayers and hymns that were going around, just people saying what they were feeling and that it was going to be okay. People were offering prayers, and then we were all singing hymns together, just trying to keep the spirit with us.
In the barn, when the storm started to die down a little bit, it was still hard to see, but we started, like whenever it was safe to stand up, and we started singing. Before that, I realized I couldn't see my brother. He was missing from the barn. He luckily made it in the cellar, but it was really scary for a solid 10 minutes, and I started crying and tearing up, but the songs changed my tears of sadness or worry to tears of appreciation that God is in my life and that He plays a part, but also relief and comfort to know that my brother is in the hands of God.
After everyone was back at the campsite that evening, we had a testimony meeting where everybody could share their experience and just how they felt about the miracles that we experienced.
It was one of the most powerful testimony meetings I've been a part of. There was a young woman who stood up and she spoke about how when the storm came, she began to pray that the storm could stop because she was very scared. And as she continued to pray, she kind of looked around and she realized that she was not the only one praying, that almost everybody was praying around her. And she thought, there's no way God's not going to hear us right now. He's definitely going to hear us right now. And she kept praying, but the storm continued. And then she said she stopped and she said, so if God can hear us and He hears our prayers, but the storm's not stopping, that must mean that God's okay for this storm to be on us. And if He's okay with this storm to be on us, then I need to be okay with the storm, and I need to learn what to do during the storm instead of wishing this storm away.
When I heard their testimonies, and when I heard like they helped me build my testimony,
we saw this white barn that we had wanted to go into, that President Johnson looked at and said, we're not going in there. And it had this massive tree, like a javelin, straight through the middle of it.
Our little shed had this tree that like fell over us almost in a V shape.
Whenever the tree fell on top of the roof, I'm sure that's what kept the roof on.
That was the Lord like just making an anchor over us, because it fell in such a particular way that I was like, that is what held this little shed in place. It allowed it to have more of a heavier anchor over it.
The following day, we drove back by the garage and the barn where so many of the youth had to shelter. When we'd gone the day before, there was nobody there, and so it was a completely empty garage. You know, who knew what was in there? But when we drove back by that second day, there were 2 cars in the garage, and there was almost no room for anybody to stand. And we just think even one day different, and that area is not available for us to shelter in. There's no shelter to be had there, and I saw that as another miracle, that even the fact that there was an open garage to fit that many youth on that particular day at that specific moment when we were in need was just a tender mercy from God.
Whenever the storm hit, we got split up. Some of us got into a trailer, and we started driving off to a home that had a cellar in it, and on our way over we were getting pelted with rain and hail.
And as they filed out of the trailer, as the last boy got out of the trailer, I heard a big crack.
The branches and trees started falling and getting thrown around.
Then another big branch about 10 inches in diameter came down, went right in the middle of the trailer, right over top of my truck, bent the top of my truck, bashed out the rear window, and it truly, just seconds, it was a miracle that no one was hurt.
I turned over and I saw this little girl, and she was just hyperventilating, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. And then the Spirit kind of was like, Ivan is literally standing right next to you. So then we went and we found our paw, and then our paw came over, and then I remember like they put their hands on her head, and I didn't hear a single word. All I heard was like her full name, and then they said something, because you know there was like storms and people crying and stuff. And then I remember my paw saying, and we bless you to find your mother, and that you can be safe, and that you can know that like you will be okay. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And then she like, the second that they said amen, the mom's girl came and was like, Hannah, like, are you okay? Like, we found your mom. Like, come here. And like, for me, I like, just the Spirit just flooded my body, and I was like, that is amazing. That the Lord loves his children so much, and he answered that girl's blessing right then.
The way everything else had happened that day, if we were just a few minutes further along on that track, we may not have stopped at that house and been able to shelter the youth in that barn. If all of the youth had been at the Pence farm, they had a barn where we were going to be having our lunch, where the back half completely blew out the doors. There were areas where the youth would have been, where farm equipment or anything else could have been blown into where they would have been standing or huddling for safety. Everything that led to where we ended up in that moment, I felt like was a little bit of the hand of God, where we were protected in each of those moments. The timing where we left late, stopping at the cemetery longer than we expected, having to kind of try to rush to get to these areas to where we were going to be having lunch, but not quite getting there, but being right where we needed to be in that moment. Those were all, I felt like, godsends.
It tore about a 20 by 20 section right out of the middle of the roof.
Right out of the middle, and threw it into the field.
Threw it into the field 300 feet away. And then the garage, the large sliding, it's a 16 by 16 foot door on the side, it blew it off.
The old shed out here, the whole back of it had been blown out, and the doors were off of the big shed. 2 of the doors were blown off of the 3-car garage. Not blown off, they're sucked in. All the doors in all the sheds and garages were sucked in. Then I saw the damage to the front of the house, and then I could see that the little 1-car garage that was over here was flat.
The roof, it just literally lifted the roof off the garage. The walls fell over, and put the roof over about 30 feet away off the foundation.
So then for the remaining 2 days of camp, we didn't have electricity or air conditioning.
We were trying to hook up generators and rig some things so that we could at least cook some meals. We were planning to attend one of the churches at the temple and do some service there. They didn't have enough power for us to be there. And so we had to really turn our plans upside down and inside out in order to find things that the youth wanted to do. We had met early that morning on that Friday morning and tried to discuss what it was that we were going to be able to do and whether or not we wanted to stay there with the youth or not. And when we had looked across, there were very few that wanted to go home. There were some that wanted to go, but very few. The rest of them wanted to stay and be a part of Nauvoo. And so we immediately started making some phone calls. We were able to go to old Nauvoo and clean up limbs and do, massive amounts of service that 200 youth can get a lot done in just a short time. And so it was really neat for them to be able to give back to that community a little bit that had obviously been hit by a pretty severe storm. We were able to spend some time down by the river as well, and spent the evenings there. We went and saw a show so that the youth could have a good time watching the show there in Nauvoo. And so we tried to have a neat experience for them. We wanted to see them smile. We wanted to see them laugh and have a good time, even with the traumatic things that they had experienced. And then the final night was just a kicker.
A bunch of the kids and the leaders set up this giant slip and slide with a tarp and a bunch of soap.
We were in the dark making a bunch of sandwiches, and somebody came around the corner and said, Justin, you're not going to believe this, but there is a slip and slide that is going down the hill and everybody is doing it. And so I'm pulled outside and there are tarp after tarp after tarp after tarp set on each other. And there's a 100-foot water slide going down the hill. And it just felt like such a neat cap to this weekend of just highs and lows and everything in between. And it was really powerful to see them be able to let loose. And we were grateful that they were still in great spirits at that point. We could have never planned this the way it came out. But we dedicated this in that way so that the youth could experience something that was difficult. I think through this experience, I've come to know a little better that whenever we dedicate ourselves specifically to the Lord, that He will magnify everything that we do. And that we learn from the Apostle Paul, not only in that scripture, but through others, that when we are in the service of God, then we continually find opportunities to reach out and do more, but God makes it so much better than we can do on our own. It is my faith that God had His hand upon us that day, and that He's aware of each of us, and that He knows of our needs, He knows of our desires, but that He's also going to go ahead and let things happen to us sometimes so that we can learn what we need to learn in order to be successful children of Him. I think that's part of, and sometimes the difficult part of life, is allowing life to act upon us in such a way that we continue to learn and develop and grow, but within God's stewardship.
Can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. Emphasis on strengtheneth me. My testimony really grew. Also my belief.
Every little thing that had happened all led to a huge miracle.
I've really grown closer to God. It's been an experience.
I realized that faith really does bring miracles, and while not everything is going to be such a big miracle and experience like that one was, but there are so many miracles for us to recognize in our lives.
That kind of showed me that in my day-to-day life, doing the small things is kind of what will matter.
I think seeing a big miracle has helped me see all the little miracles that happen in my life.
He knew that we were going to be exactly there at that moment. And that was a testimony to me that He's aware of us and that He knows these youth. He knows their struggles. He knows their temptations. He knows how to protect them.
But during that whole time, I wasn't afraid at all. I really had so much peace and comfort, and I knew that the Lord was going to protect us.
because I still have some purpose in this world.
He could have easily taken us around the storm, that he could have easily split the storm, but he didn't want that for us. He wanted us to go through the storm. There'll be times that will be hard, and there'll be times that he will take us right through the storm. But if we have faith, then he will show us the tender mercies, he will show us the miracle, and he will make us come to the next side, to the other side, stronger.
The Lord strengthens me every single day by helping me recognize what he has given me and what he continues to give me, and the safety that I have in following him.
I have loved long since and lost. Oh,
So what are we looking at next?
So just to kind of give the gravity of the storm, I want to tell you something, an experience I had that isn't in the film, which plays into a parallel to the perilous times that we're living in. So, and I'll try to keep this short. But when the storm really got bad and it started to rain at first, now I live in the Midwest. I know what tornadoes are. I've never heard of a derecho though. And I know that usually once it starts raining, the worst part of the storm is over. So we had tornado alerts going off on our phones, and we kind of stopped and the kids started running. I didn't know where. We were about midway in the wagon train and the kids started running. It was raining. So I told a few of my kids, just put the tarp over us and let's just hide out under the tarp by our handcart for a little while and let the storm pass. But then the winds got stronger and stronger. The rain got heavier and heavier. And then someone came over and they're like, there's a barn. We're all going toward the barn. And my kids were like, all right, Pa, let's go. So we throw the tarp off and we start trying to run to this barn. The wind was blowing so hard, like at my face, I couldn't breathe. We were running like into these 100-mile-an-hour winds and I couldn't breathe. I could barely even move. I thought I was going to die. Like I was scared to death. And then one of my Trek sons grabbed me by the arm and he's like, come on, Pa, we can do it. And it was kind of a, one of those hero movie moments where we're trying to run through the storm and we finally get inside. I haven't been that scared that I was going to lose my life, I think, ever, period. It was scary. It was bad.
Wow.
Those leaders who had phones and were watching it and tracking it knew what it was and knew how bad it was and was trying to get everybody to safety. So to me, I learned that there's a valuable lesson in following those who know better than I do. Because if I would have said, no, forget you guys and just stayed by my handcart, I might not be here to talk to you today.
Yeah, that's very true.
Because I followed the advice and counsel of our leaders, I'm okay. My youth are okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which, is sometimes hard for people.
Now, are you in the bishopric now?
No.
What?
I was.
Oh, there she is. I tried to figure out where that whining was coming. Thank you, Nick. The cat was meowing like crazy. Thank you. So were you also a young men's president at the time?
No.
You are now.
No. So I was the bishop. I served for 6 years. Now I'm on the High Council.
Oh, okay. How was it like being a bishop?
It was.
You see a lot of things, huh?
A lot of things. And thankfully you forget a lot of things after you've been released.
And let me ask you this. So I'm you know how knee deep I am in a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Isn't it true that there are leaders sometimes that misuse their authority?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we're not being specific. I'm not calling anybody out, but I'm saying, but we're talking about in high places even, that when I say misuse their authority, they don't pray maybe about something. They just make a decision without inspiration involved.
Yeah. And because we're all human, we all have our own biases based on how we grew up, where we grew up, what we do for a living. Everything kind of plays into our decision-making process. And at least for me, like, I was never inspired all the time. I feel like I was inspired a lot of the time. And sometimes I was just left to make my own best judgment. So I would like to hope that people won't be condemned for following me for anything, if that makes sense.
It does.
Because, they put their trust in me as a bishop, and God in certain circumstances may have just said, Ryan, you make the choice on this one. Decide what's best.
I love stories. I love stuff like this. I love it because, so you're done with the movie.
Yep. It's currently available on Living Scriptures streaming platform, so you can get on there and watch it anytime you would like.
Thank you so much, Ryan. This is Ryan Sorensen with Doubt Not, Fear Not is the movie. Do you have a trailer?
We do.
Why didn't you bring it? Did you send it to me?
I haven't. I sent you the full video.
Oh, good. Can I cut little bits and pieces out of it?
Yep. Cut it up as much as you want.
All right. And then I'll show can I show a few clips of certain things that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, good. This is going to be a really good video then.
Yeah.
That was your whole point.
That
was your whole point,
all
right?
you want. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Because we want to share this with others. It was such an impactful event for me and our youth, but it has the ability to touch other people and help them realize that God is a God of miracles.
Wow. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, Troy.
Come back again, and he will. He's coming back again to talk about Doctrine and Covenants, Section 87. And we'll set up, in the last days, we'll set up an interview. All right?
Sounds like a plan.
Take care.
Thank you, Troy.
Goodbye.
Have mercy on